One time I saw like a dead butterfly, and I like to look up what that symbolizes, and it symbolizes like an end of a chapter. If that's what it, can't remember the exact thing, but
yes,
let's just use that as an example.
Yes. All right,
then,
wonderful.
And then it was actually an end of a chapter of a certain part.
Yes.
But I didn't know if I look at a dead butterfly, can consciousness be a little bit more clearer? I mean, I got to go to Google and look it up, and
then you manifested the book, and you got the answer.
Cipher through like a bunch of messages.
Yes.
Well, it could be this, it could be this. I mean, I
all right, so we're going to help you.
Clear messages.
So we're going to help you understand this. Yes. Oh, okay. So we always talk about this idea, knowingness and manifestation. And if there is confusion, doubt, indecision, maybe something is sort of partially manifest, you don't have clear knowingness, you don't have clear manifestation, but energy is building up. So let's just say the end of the chapter, there was something that was building up in your energetic field. It's sort of the projectional energetic field that is as yet unmanifest, and the frequency of it is the end of a chapter.
Welcome to Spread Your Third Eye podcast. I am your host, Mia Wrights, and we are here to spread that third eye wide open and take you beyond the veils into other dimensions with our girl, Georgia Jean.
What's up?
Bringing in the circle of light today.
Yeah, we're definitely going to bring in the circle of light, piping hot from the other side.
So I have a list of questions, of like 50 questions, and we're just going to go down the list today.
Yeah, see how many we can get answered quickly or wordily, as the circle of light sometimes are.
And guys, if you have any questions, put it down in the comments, and we are reading the comments, and we can ask the circle of light the next time.
Yeah, that's right. The next time we do like a Q&A session like this,
yeah,
we'll pull your best questions in and try and get as much of your curiosities answered verbally. And remember, it's always happening energetically every time you watch the show.
You are getting energetic frequencies, attunements when you listen to each episode. So don't forget to subscribe. And let's start. Let's bring in the circle.
Okay, here we go. Hi, yes, indeed, dear ones. We are here, and we are most delighted to make connection with you here on another magnificent day in your earth plane. It's always a great delight to come forward in this way and to be of service to our dear ones here in physical form as we assist you with the evolutionary shift of the human consciousness.
Hi, thanks for being here.
Indeed, dear one.
So first question is, can you explain other dimensions and where you're coming from? I know I've asked this in another episode, but I want you to explain it again for people who haven't seen that other episode.
Indeed, yes. So dimensions of reality are like different levels of saturation of consciousness. So if you think about the 3D, the physical reality, you have consciousness really saturated in a way that it's generating physical form in the way it feels real. And as you move further out from that physicalized reality, you have consciousness, quote unquote, vibrating at higher levels that isn't so dense in its form. So when you have a rainbow, of course, you have the different aspects of color, and at a lower level, it's red, and at the higher level, quote unquote, it is violet or purple. And then you have those blended areas where it's somewhere in between. And that's really what you might think of as being the veil between the different levels of consciousness. So even though all consciousness is a sort of a fabric of energy that's infinite and ever connected, there are these marker points where there's some kind of saturation that's stronger, that keeps one level of consciousness in separation from the next. Now, in the human framework, you experience your 3D reality through the mind, which uses certain illusions, such as the illusion of separation, the illusion of polarity, linear time and space, that creates a denser reality in this framework. The framework that generates your sense of separation, also survival consciousness between each other, when you start to project that into a faster moving, non-physical realm, this is what we would talk about as being the fourth dimension, in that it is human egoic consciousness projected out into less of a physicalized reality. So not so much hard chairs, but still this sort of concept of other projected into the non-physical realm. When you're moving into the fifth dimensional consciousness, now you are creating consciousness from a place beyond the human egoic framework. So it can still sort of be in this physicalized form, but it is not governed by the illusion of the 3D framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit what the fifth dimension, when we're all fully integrated into the fifth dimension, what it would be like? I know you. I only want to know this question. I know you don't want me to get heady and go into my heart, but what do we have to look forward to?
Well, in terms of being creative consciousness in any kind of form, you get to experience reality being created from a much less limited experience. So again, the 3D mind construct, because it is governed very strongly by the survival consciousness, means there's a lot of lack, limitation on on everything. And so, of course, your sense of abundance is greatly restricted in that framework, and it is also greatly distributed through the hierarchical structures that the survival consciousness mind creates. When you're in 5D, none of that paradigm is shaping reality at all. There's no hierarchy. And even when we talk about the upper dimensions, even the terms higher frequencies, it's a way to help your human mind understand that there is a more expansive state of existence beyond this contraction through which most of you experience your reality, that there's something looser, freer, funner, less limited, etc., etc. And to get out of the framework that's creating the limitation, which is the mind, and move into the heart, is the fastest way you can access that while in physical form right now, without going into non-physical form to experience that freedom of movement of energy in all its forms, shaping and creating reality as you know it.
So what about like astral projection, or what is it, where you can take your soul out of your body and project yourself into other countries without having to leave your living room? Is that going to be something the 5D will enable us to do?
Yes, and we like to talk about this idea because you kind of do it with FaceTime.
Oh.
Meaning that piece of technology is a physicalized material piece of technology as you perceive it, that gives you that opportunity to go into different places on the planet right now. You never had access to that kind of an experience before until very recently, and you kind of forget that. So will you be able to take your consciousness and perceive other places and spaces in time and space? Absolutely. And it will become more and more viscerally real and validated. And as more of humanity is able to do that, it will be more collectively validated as an experience. Now it starts to become more of your shared reality, not just something a few gifted people can do, or a few weirdos can do, or a few out-of-the-box people can do, but the collective start to be able to do it. You start to agree on it, just in the same way that you agree you have FaceTime, even though if any of you actually tried to explain the technology, as you said the other day, how is this happening, most of you wouldn't really know how it's happening at all. Wouldn't be able to explain it. You just have a device and you believe it happens through this device and this network. Well, consciousness is a network. It is an interconnected fabric which you can access when you drop that limitation that the 3D egoic framework does. And this really happens through the opening of the pineal gland, which allows more of that frequency that tends to lie outside of the defining physical senses to become in and interpreted and experienced. And many of you already do have telepathic experiences, experiences where you are out of body in that way. You just don't quite know or understand it yet. And it's not congruent enough with your reality for you to really validate it for yourselves.
So the next question would be, the only thing that really exists is all consciousness, God. Does God think as like a singularity, like all of one? He actually can, I don't want to say he, but that's how our
Traditionally,
mind is,
your mind is, yes.
It.
All, yes.
All.
Yes.
Would God ever be lonely? And is that why he created fractals of himself to interact with itself? Is there a loneliness aspect?
This is a very, very interesting question, dear one. We might take a moment with the channel here to share this perspective. So, loneliness is really an experience that the human consciousness understands.
Okay.
So it is part of all consciousness. It is part of God, as you put it, because it is part of all consciousness.
Okay. So
Nothing
there's a
is.
piece of
It's
God
a piece.
that has
Yes, it's a piece of
emotion.
God that is loneliness because you are God and you experience it.
Okay.
Was God lonely and decided to create other aspects of self so there could be that interaction, not in the same way that you feel loneliness would be the answer to that, because loneliness is an aspect of the human consciousness and the human consciousness tends to always project itself upon all consciousness. That's why God, for many people, is a he, and especially because many people who've written about God have been he's.
That's actually a good point.
So there's always what you experience yourself as a singular egoic identity with all your complex experiences of emotion, thoughts, feelings can be projected on these notions of God or source or the universe. And that, in fact, is what often creates your separation from God, keeps you in the state of separation from source and all that is, because you project these uncomfortable feelings on God, like God is punishing me. I've done something bad and God hates me now. When something goes wrong, like, why does God hate me so much? The irony is that it is you, dear ones, that experience the loneliness when you have strong projections on source that are keeping you in separation, because you are, in fact, keeping yourselves in separation from all that is and the power of that infinite creative expression and infinite love and expansion that all consciousness actually is. So it's handy for you, dear ones, even to think about, what do I project on source, on God? What ideas that are actually more human characteristics am I projecting on God that is keeping me from keeping that source outside of myself rather than it being fully embodied, and therefore you creating in your physical reality with that potency of a God force?
So this is like a mushroom psychedelic question.
Indeed,
that has
yes.
my mind just like expanding. So not right now, I'm sober, but at one time. God, all consciousness out in wherever it is it inside some kind of container, which is inside another container? Like, what is it in, and what is it expanding inside? Because here you always have to be within something.
Very good, dear one. Give us a moment here with the channel. So again, because in human consciousness you have the illusion not just of time, and you have the illusion of space.
Okay.
So space, as you experience it, has beginnings and ends. Like this room is a space, but outside of the human framework, you don't have space. So there can't be a beginning and end in that way.
Wow.
The illusion of beginnings and ends exists where in that aspect of the playing field, there is an illusion of space.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about COVID. Was it real? Was it not real? Were people really getting sick? Was the government lying?
Hot topic. Yes, people were getting sick. Yes, information is distorted. The point of the whole COVID storyline for you as human consciousness really was a mass manifestation that would assist breaking you out of the mind storylines, of the mind's opinions, of the mind's he said, she said, or this side or that side. It was a creative manifestation that had many purposes in the shift in consciousness that is going on. Because for many reasons, collectively, there has been a lot of choice points for dear ones to cross over and move into a more non-physical realm. Because part of the awakening of human consciousness is to begin to understand your multidimensionality and to thin the veil of separation between you and what is outside of the egoic framework. So whether people point the finger at COVID, whether people point the finger at vaccines, whether people point the finger at natural disasters, there are a lot of dear ones transitioning into non-physical right now, because it serves as a way to thin the veil between the dimensions of what you experience reality to be. Most people have someone crossed over now. And that having a beloved crossed over opens up a desire to have connection to that which is beyond the veil. For the vast majority of human experience, of course, death is an understood, accepted part of life, and you have certain frameworks through which death is adapted for and accepted. Even though there may be grieving, even though there may be mourning, you understand linearly when older people die, that is the process of life. And so when older people die, even though it may bring pain to dear ones, it isn't usually an activation of the kind of questioning of life and death that occurs when, say, for example, a younger person dies or something doesn't make sense to the linearity of the mind. Most of your spiritual cracks, your cracks in consciousness, occur when something doesn't make sense. That's when you really start questioning outside of the box of your non-reality. And so with the whole phenomena of COVID, vaccines, whatever it is, media manipulation, big storylines about bigger entities controlling, as a human collective, you have not been able to make sense of this phenomena. There has been no absolute right and absolute wrong.
Some people feel like there's an absolute right and absolute wrong. What's
So very often, and Georgia will attest, that when you work with clients, you hear that they have an opinion that is absolute. And then as the days, weeks, months wear on, there'll be informational or manifest experience that will begin to break down that certainty. Now, certainly people can be appearing to shore up on their opinions, especially if they've gone out publicly with it. There can be a difficulty in dropping that certainty in a public way, but everybody has a capacity to have questioning of their own sense of rightness. Now, polarity is an aspect of the human 3D egoic framework, right and wrong. It's at this polarity that's being broken down
Okay.
through example, through people viscerally experiencing. Oh, for example, I don't believe COVID was real at all, and then a friend dies of it, or I don't believe that vaccines can cause harm, and then somebody has a bad experience with it. It's humanity could not agree upon this as a collective.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get across. There will be no agreement because that wasn't the point of the experience. The point of the experience was to get people questioning, not about the truth of the story, but that is part of the process. That curiosity, is it true or isn't it? Is it real or isn't it real? But the innate structures that govern the imprinting of the human egoic framework at its most fundamental level, which is the illusion of separation, the illusion of polarity. That is the consciousness point of the whole experience, to break people out of their minds and come into a greater state of surrender, whether they're saying it publicly or not. Most people with this storyline at some moment have said, I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on here. I don't know. And when you can say, I don't know, you're actually going through the act of surrender, which allows broader consciousness to start to come in and bring in new frequencies that are not even the solution or the answer to that question, but what is reality beyond this? What is reality beyond the fighting? What is the reality beyond the disparity? What is reality beyond? If you look at COVID vaccine, both sides are pretty much driven by the same core frequencies, which is actually caring about the well-being of others and fear. And if you go with everybody, most people are resonating, the story has evolved, of course, now into other things, but they're fluctuating between those dynamics. Some other big illusions that have been confronted is the illusion of the physical body and the illusion of decay and entropy of the body. There's been a lot that has been explored consciously and even unconsciously by the human collective in this process. Wherever you find charge or see something going on, it's most likely got a theme for you that you're trying to integrate. So concepts of freedom and control, cause and effect. A lot of these themes originate in the human egoic framework. So what is life beyond the struggle of these themes? That is the purpose of the storyline.
Okay.
Yes.
To awaken us at some level.
Yes.
At the depths.
And again, as we said, when you have someone who's crossed over, when it doesn't make sense, you start to question. Most egoic cracks happen when it doesn't make sense. It can make sense for a while, and then something happens and it doesn't make sense. So, and unfortunately, because we understand that it hurts, a lot of the time when you have tragedy, which is why a lot of growth happens through tragedy, is because something no longer makes sense about that current reality. And you can really go two ways about it. You can go and stay in the trauma of it, or you can go into the growth path. And even when you go into the trauma of it and stay there for a while, usually it's still going to lead to the growth path that you will attain as you get out of that trauma. So that is, how can you hold or find or invite the higher offering that is coming from this experience, is to not get stuck in the storyline, he said, she said, right or wrong, true or false, they did it, they didn't do it, blaming, pointing fingers, which is how the mind will keep you trapped in its egoic game. And furthermore, what we will say is, when the mind feels threatened by its own dissolving, by its own death, it will generate scary stories. That is how it's also
threshold resistance.
It's a threshold resistance. Yes, it's a way to keep the collective analyzing, fighting, worrying. The mind is saying, look at this scary manifestation. Look at this thing that's spread amongst the world. Everybody is suffering from this storyline on a broader level. You're all going to die. Either way, both sides will say something.
You're all going to be controlled, or you're all going to die.
Yes, yeah. and it'll all happen. Either one or the other is going on. So it's very catastrophic activation when the mind is sensing its own death. And you may all experience that. Even if you start heart centering or moving out of your mind, you might have some illusions that arise that are saying, don't go there, it's dangerous, terrible things will happen. And if you keep going forward, you'll break through that threshold and you'll move into the reality that's beyond all those storylines, beyond the polarity, the separation, the suffering, the control. The biggest controller of all, the generator of everything that is seen as control out there, is the mind. So if control is your theme, go in here and dissolve it. Is fear about the physical condition thing is your theme, go in there, get to the heart of the energy that's creating that, and you will get into that transcended state where you'll start operating beyond its influence.
Thank you. So next question, because we're generating our reality all the time, is there symbols, like if I saw like a dead butterfly, or if I saw the 1111 on my clock all the time, or a cat, a black cat, is that a symbolism for us, like a message?
So certainly what happens with consciousness is, and we have said this, and you dear ones have said this, about this idea that when you're watching this show, even there are transmissions coming through. There's always intelligence coming at you that is answering the questioning that you have. Mm-hmm. And so when you see something like a sign, or something that feels like a special synchronicity, or something that has a history of being a sign that represents something, your mind is picking up on the frequencies of whatever that represents to you on some level. It's picking up on those frequencies, and then it's generating the sign or the symbol. Does that make sense? So let's just say, let's pick one thing. What would,
like one time I saw like a dead butterfly, and I like to look up what that symbolizes, and it symbolizes like an end of a chapter. If that's what it, can't remember the exact thing, but
yes,
let's just use that as an example.
Yes. All right. Wonderful.
And then it was actually an end of a chapter of a certain part.
Yes.
But I didn't know, if I look at a dead butterfly, can consciousness be a little bit more clear? I mean, I got to go to Google and look it up, and then
you manifested the book, and you got the answer.
Cipher through like a bunch of messages. Yes. Well, it could be this, it could be this. I mean, I
all right, so we're going to help you.
Clear messages.
So we're going to help you understand this. Yes. Oh, okay. So we always talk about this idea, knowingness and manifestation. And if there is confusion, doubt, indecision, maybe something is sort of partially manifest, you don't have clear knowingness, you don't have clear manifestation, but energy is building up. So let's just say the end of the chapter, there was something that was building up in your energetic field. Mm-hmm. It's sort of the projectional energetic field that is as yet unmanifest, and the frequency of it is the end of a chapter. Like that is what is building. That's the energized timeline that you're on, that something else is moving out, that a change is happening, the end of chapter is happening. That frequency is building up. Now, because that future is outside the illusion of time and space as you perceive it or understand it, it is it's building up energetically, and you're starting to get the signal from the future, but it's already coming into manifestation. The future is already starting to manifest. Does that mean it is already manifest because you're lining up with it energetically? So the energy of it is building, and you're beginning to sense that. Now, most people with the smaller number of the energetic connection points of the pineal gland don't have the sophistication yet in the connection between the pineal gland and the brain for you to absolutely clearly see that change that is happening. The knowingness. You're not waking up in the morning going, I know that that is done.
Okay.
You're getting a partial signal that your mind is feeling there's an end of an end happening, end of a chapter, and now it starts to generate something that's sort of resonant with that, that's familiar to you, because you're not in your future yet.
Okay.
So you don't know what it is. So your mind literally doesn't know how to create it yet, but it is trying to create something for you so you can know that that is coming.
Okay.
So, because it is coming, because it's knowingness that it's coming, because the energy of it is building up. So your mind creates the dead butterfly, which captures your attention enough for you to see it and be curious enough
why'd that
about
come into
it.
my reality? What
Yes,
symbolizes?
and then you manifested a book that would give you also Google an answer that was also resonant with that future. And at that moment when you got that answer, there might have been enough click with the knowingness of what was building that you're like, I'll go with that answer.
Okay.
Now, and then it becomes manifest, because the energy that was building up still had, for you to perceive it, still had to operate through that illusion of time and space and storyline that something happened that ended the chapter. But the chapter was ended already in that creation, and you started to get signals for that. As you open up more, and this is why signs, symbols, feathers, numbers, all of this is symbols that you're starting to become aware that there's frequencies that exist and realities that exist outside of your physically defined reality. And that's why you start manifesting them, and it feels like this spiritual sign. And it's spiritual in them. We like to talk a little bit more about energy, because even the concept of spirituality has storylines about it. But it's spiritual in the sense that it's not physical. Mm-hmm. So it's consciousness is building, you're starting to sense it, your pineal gland is opening up, you're starting to become more aware of it, but you don't really know what it is. So you have these symbols, synchronicities, things that point you in this direction that something is happening. And then you become more open. But even after a while, your mind can start getting attached to that and say, well, that is always the symbol of it. But really, consciousness is always expressing its way in frequency, and then your mind is trying to put together something that can feel congruent with your understanding of reality. So a sign, a symbol, synchronicity feels pretty cool from your experience right now. But again, it starts to open up that, as we said before, that questioning, that curiosity. What is that? And as you're opening up that questioning, that curiosity, that what is that, you're inviting more and more consciousness that lies outside your framework to start to come in. The questioning, the curiosity is part of that act of surrender in a way, and saying, okay, give us more. So more symbols come in. As you're developing, now your brain pineal gland starts to become more accurate, and that's when you start having knowingness, very clear knowingness. You don't even need a symbol anymore. You just know, like there's a change coming. You just know, for example, before you even know you're going to move, you just pop online and start looking at houses in Austin. 2 weeks later, your husband comes home and says, we're moving to Austin. The energy of that manifestation was building so much that your knowingness was telling you to look for homes in Austin. Frequency first, driving your behavior. Manifestation, the storyline of the reason why you would be going there.
So last question, how often should we use, you taught me about the of course statement.
Of course power statement, yes.
Okay, yeah. So of course power statement. So there is a way that you get into your heart center and you're manifesting and projecting your dream life. Your heart center has the blueprint to your dream life. So you activate your heart center. That's the main modality of this work.
Yes.
But how often, and then also if you start to stress about, of course I have enough money to do that. Of course we're going to win the game today. Of course, that's the power statement. How often should we be manifesting in our brain using the of course statements or manifesting in general versus being into our heart center?
So, and we did address this a little bit before with you, but it's very helpful to reiterate this. So first of all, we'd like to explain the of course power statement, because it is a way to arrive to knowingness and or manifestation, because that's what you actually want. You don't want to stay in the state of questioning and seeking. So when you are, a lot of times people stay in that questioning, that seeking, like, what does this symbol mean? What does this symbol mean? What does the symbol mean? They stay in that questioning, which actually the mind also likes that. So we always want, we applaud you for having questioning, because it is the gateway to surrender through which more consciousness can come through. But we encourage you to become aware when you're just in questioning all the time, that your mind is keeping you where it wants you to be, which is in itself questioning and trying to find the solutions in your own mind. Because if it isn't manifest, you don't know how to create it. If it isn't knowingness, you don't know how to create it yet. You're looking for the place that has the resistance to the manifestation. And we're introducing this idea because what is key to the Of Course Power statement is that you focus in your heart to use it. Because when you're focused in your heart, you are accessing the creative portal that is not restricted by the limitations of the mind, by the belief structures, the egoic framework in general, etc., the major illusions that govern the resistant aspects of the human experience. When you're focused in the heart, you are saying, I'm going to bypass the mind, which may include the mind's desires, because they're influenced by childhood, social media, all of this programming that you have received. I'm going to bypass even those desire points and go into my heart and access what we call the master consciousness, which is like this idea of the brain of God, the intelligence behind all creation, because the all consciousness can create anything. So of course, I want to live a happy life. If you're accessing your heart, of course, I can have a happy life, because the master consciousness creates it for you, not your mind. Your mind doesn't necessarily know how to create the happy life in the same way that the master consciousness does, because that is connected to the truth of who you really are, an infinite creative being, expanded consciousness, infinite love. So the power of the Of Course Power statement is first that you're seated in the heart, that you are aware that the heart is this powerful, so of course it can work. And then when you use the statement, it will naturally push up the resistance of the mind if the mind doesn't believe or can align with that. So if you say, of course I have $1 million, the mind says, you've got $12.50 in the bank. Now there's a disparity. So what you get to do with that is you get to harvest the energy from the mind that is creating the disparity, the resistance to being in that idea of an infinite abundance, $1 million, $1 billion, whatever it is. Love and accept the part of you that is generating the disparity. So I love and accept the part of me that
doesn't believe
it. And also I love and accept the part of me that is me only having $12.50 in the bank, because your externalized projectional reality, what is real, is still generated by the mind. So you want to love and accept the part of you that's actually creating the reality that you only have that. And you're then also harvesting the energy from that reality and giving it to the heart when you do this practice. Now the heart has more energy to generate its projectional reality, which is already beyond those limitations, and you can receive it. So if you have a mind manifestation that you want, so let's just say you want we always use the corny example of the new car or whatever, but you say, all right, I want a Mercedes-Benz. And you say, just from your head, all right, I'm manifesting a Mercedes-Benz. I'm going to manifest a Mercedes-Benz. Your capacity to manifest the Mercedes-Benz is going to be limited by your conscious and unconscious belief structure within your mind that is in alignment with you having a Mercedes-Benz. So that may include your concepts of money, self-worth, whatever the Mercedes-Benz means to you, or what having it would mean to you. That your capacity to just use your mind to manifest it is going to be limited by your conscious and unconscious belief structures. Now, any manifestation you do from your mind, when it doesn't manifest like that, you're going to become more aware of your unconscious belief structures. Maybe like, oh man, I'm mad that didn't happen. And now you've got some energy, emotional energy to integrate. So, because manifesting from the mind is using that vibrational structure. Manifesting from the heart is using the structure of infinite intelligence to manifest with.
Okay.
And once you really know that you are connected to an infinite supply, once you've done that sort of submission process of coming into the heart and allowing it to generate, many of your attachments, associations, meanings of why you want certain manifestations may actually disappear, because if they're there because it gives you a sense of safety, well, if you're connected to your infinite supply, safety really isn't an issue at that point at all anymore, because your heart is creating the life where you are supported, where you are loved, where you are in a stable framework that you enjoy.
Yeah.
It's not going to generate more suffering from you. That is the point. The heart is not generating suffering. And the more everybody is in their heart, the more you will see that suffering as a concept and an experience, a created visceral reality, will fade more and more from the human collective experience as well. So the heart creates in a way that is good for you and everybody, because it doesn't operate within the limitation of they get some and they get less because they need more.
Yeah.
Yes. So we say, listen, if you really want to fast track it, go to your heart. Now you can ask your heart, show me, what should I be focusing consciously on? And it'll show you. And then you can use your conscious intention with that in cooperation with the heart, and things will happen much faster that way than you being in your mind saying, sometimes you need something because something's building up. So you may feel a desire to manifest something. Say you're doing this podcast and you're like, I really need help with this. I want to manifest an assistant.
Yeah.
Well, that's also, you're feeling those thoughts because the energy of it is building up, that is becoming manifest. You will notice that when you have those thoughts, sometimes the manifestation comes really quickly because it's already part of the heart blueprint for that to happen. Frequency first, manifestation second. That thought was a moment of alignment where it all came together, and then just with a little bit more of the illusion of time and space, the thing can become physicalized, manifest. So we would sort of say, don't get too thinky about, am I manifesting from my mind, my heart? I would start with the heart.
Okay.
And then when you're like, oh, I need that, just focus your energy a little bit more and it'll probably come forward if it's within the heart blueprint.
The heart is the answer.
Indeed, dear ones. Yes.
Thank you.
Indeed. We adore you all so very much. Truly, we come forward to be of assistance to you. And some may say, oh my gosh, if this is so powerful, how can this be safe to use? And all right, I know I'm a good person. If I'm manifesting from my heart, how can I be sure that those people over there should have access to the power of the heart and this information getting out to everybody that you can use your heart sentiment? How do I know that it's going to be safe if everyone has this power? Because the heart is already operating beyond the suffering-based illusions of the mind. There is only great joy for humanity and more of humanity to get into their hearts. And it isn't a sort of a lightweight manifestational experience either. It isn't just like, oh, I'm in my heart and now I see more butterflies around and that's a happy experience. It is the supercomputer power creator generator that can shift your collective paradigm so much faster than if everybody who was voting in any election and everybody who was protesting in every protest and everybody who was getting mad reading every newspaper or watching social media or experiencing outrage about this, that, or the other, and we understand that many of those feelings are valid. We do not want to dismiss that as a human collective you want better. But if everybody who was protesting, rioting, fighting, actually heart-centered, bam, humanity, you would be in a different state almost instantly. And this is why we want you to understand this, because we know that you don't want to keep suffering. That's why you're fighting each other how to fix it. Some person's idea, another person's idea, fight. Let's fight about it. Let's even blow each other up even more about how to fix this. It's because your mind can't fix it. You have to give up on your minds to let this happen. So feel your anger, feel your rage, feel your desire for true change to come, and then get into your hearts and say, hearts, show us what is beyond this madness of the mind. And we assure you, and this is why you should like, share, and subscribe, and share this, dear ones, because this is how, as a human collective, you're going to move past your pain, your limitation, your suffering.
Perfectly said.
Indeed,
Thank
dear
you
ones.
so much.
Yes. We adore you all so very much. Until we're meeting in this way or some other way, we love you very much. And for now, we'll say goodbye, dear one. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
I will